Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed after a cargo ship hit a support pillar Tuesday. Now there is talk of the federal government paying 100% to rebuild the bridge, including from President Biden, who vowed it would cover the cost in totality. However, some on the right are saying no after a recent approval of the government spending bill. And why exactly isn't money from the 2021 infrastructure bill being repurposed for this cause? Let's bring in Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter. He sits on the House Energy and Commerce Committee and the House Budget Committee. I had the pleasure and honor of serving with him when I was in Congress once upon a time. Congressman, thanks for joining us on this Easter morning. I do appreciate it. So,
Thank you, Jason, and happy Easter to you and everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Look, I don't think anybody doubts or challenges the idea and the notion that the bridge needs to be rebuilt and done as fast as possible. It's part of our critical infrastructure, shipping, commerce. It is critical. But you're on the Budget Committee. You're on Energy and Commerce. The president's teeing this up as if there needs to be a new supplemental or a new round of spending. What's your take on that?
First of all, Jason, what happened in Baltimore is truly a tragedy. And yes, our country needs to get this port going as soon as possible. We understand that more so than most people. I represent the entire coast of Georgia. We have two major seaports here. The Port of Savannah, number 3 roll-on roll-off port in the country, in Brunswick, second only to Baltimore. So both of those ports are important, and we understand the importance of it. Yes, it needs to be fixed immediately. There's no question about that. It's going to be a big impact on our economy. However, when we get into this, we need to look at a number of different things. First of all, what's the responsibility of the shipping company? What's the responsibility of the insurance company? And what about funds that are already out there, particularly in the infrastructure bill? Can they be diverted and used for this instead of using new money? As you mentioned, I'm on the Budget Committee, and I'll tell you, it's situations like this why we should be fiscally responsible. Emergency situations where we are going to need money. That's why we should be fiscally responsible.
Yeah, I've never understood this. You know, disasters happen. Unfortunately, there are tornadoes, there are hurricanes. You feel that there in the state of Georgia and Florida and everywhere else. They happen. Disasters happen. But why they aren't budgeted for in advance, or why don't we ever have a discussion as a nation to say, oh my goodness, this horrific thing happened. Instead of doing X, we're going to have to take this over here and spend money here. That's what any business or any family would do. Instead, the president, the Democrats instantly say, well, we need more money.
That's exactly right. And that's what we've got to start doing. We did it when I was in the Georgia State Legislature. We had a mid-year readjustment, if you would, to look and see what we need to shift around in our budget. And we need to be doing that in the federal budget as well. But you're right. The idea in the federal budget is if you need something, you just go and get new funds. Well, we need to end that. Not to mention the fact that this is the executive branch, again, making financial decisions that should be up to the legislative branch. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that should concern you. The power of the executive branch has superseded that of the legislative branch when it comes to spending over the past few decades. That's something we need to claw back to the legislative branch in Congress.
Well, there was $1.2 trillion that went out the door in a bipartisan way. People touted the infrastructure bill. It just seems to me that Baltimore should go to the top of the food chain and say, yep, we're going to have to spend some money there. But there's $110 billion that's set aside over there for these types of things. And the idea that you have to get more money, we've kind of exhausted that. I've got to move on. The administration is also now saying that they want to get rid of diesel-fueled trucks. How's that going to play in Georgia?
I can assure you in South Georgia, Bubba ain't going to be happy. There's no question about that. We love our trucks here in South Georgia. And you know, this is another example of the Biden administration's war on fossil fuels. And day one, the Biden administration declared war on fossil fuels. And now this is a more rush to green. Look, EVs are great, and there's going to be a market for EVs. And when EVs are out there, then people have a choice for that. That's good. But the real win is when we have consumer choice, when consumers have the choice, when this is market driven. I've witnessed it. I've been to Europe and I've seen where they've allowed their policies to get ahead of their innovation. It causes problems. That's a lesson we should learn here in America, but it's one that the Biden administration has not learned. It's one that's going to come back to bite us.
Yeah, I do think it's an issue of choice. It's an issue of freedom. It's also about innovation and making sure that we've got the very best products and all of the above energy portfolio that makes the United States in the strongest position possible. But this administration seems just hell-bent on saying, no, I'm sorry, but you know what? We're just going to get rid of anything that has the combustible motor in it. And I think that's going to be devastating, not just in Michigan and Wisconsin and Georgia and other parts around the country, but for our entire economy. And they're getting rid of so many other things, whether it be stoves or light bulbs or, you know, whatever it might be. They don't want you to be able to make that choice, Congressman.
That's exactly right. And Jason, you served with us in Congress, and you understand when the government chooses winners and losers, it never works. It has to be market driven. EVs are going to do great. There's going to be a market for EVs. I'm very blessed in the first district that I have the honor and privilege of representing that we're getting the single largest economic development project in the history of our state, an EV manufacturing plant. They're excited about it. They're going to do great because there's going to be a market for EVs, but it needs to be market driven. It needs to be consumer driven. Consumers need to make this decision, not to have like the tailpipe emission rules that just came out last week, where the administration saying that 67% of all new vehicles have to be EVs by 2032. That's not the way that we do this.
All right, I want to transition real quickly and get your thoughts on impeachment. The articles coming over from the House on Secretary Mayorkas going over into the Senate. What would you like to see happen there? Because we've been spending a lot of time on this show and on this network, quite frankly, talking about how insecure the border is based on the choices and the representations that were made. Because this administration told us for 3 years the border was safe, secure, and they had operational control. And obviously that was a lie. That wasn't true.
Jason, I've been to the border 8 times in the 10 years that I've been a member of Congress. The last time was 6 weeks ago. It is in as bad a shape now as I've ever seen it. I learned some new things. First of all, there are now more non-Mexicans coming across that border than there are Mexicans. Secondly, and most concerning to me, as you know, I'm a pharmacist, most concerning to me is that the Border Patrol agents tell us that the street price of fentanyl has plummeted, gone from like $10 a tablet to 25 cents a tablet, which tells you, and see simple economics, that the supply is so high now in America that the demand is not keeping up with it and the price has gone down. That is concerning. 200 people every day dying as a result of fentanyl poisoning. That's one of the main reasons why we have to secure that border. It's killing our people.
Well, with the impeachment inquiry going over to the United States Senate, there is an opportunity for the Senate to deal with this, and they should deal with it appropriately. And there's no executive orders to reverse the issues that are moving forward. But Congressman Buddy Carter, thank you so much for joining us. He is one of the only, I believe, the only pharmacist in the United States Congress. And thank you for your service. Happy Easter to you.
Thank you, Jason.